Additional aids and services are available upon request to individuals with disabilities. To make such a request, you may contact us by email by clicking Help or sending an email directly to pdportal@tamu.edu. You can also contact us by phone, including Relay Texas, at 1-800-441-7323 or in writing to Train PD, PD Portal Support, 4477 TAMU, College Station, Texas, 77843.
Welcome, Marion. You are ready to go.
Thank you. Thanks, Anne Marie. And thank you, everyone, for being here. As Anne Marie said, it does take a village, and this particular project is taking a few villages. So there's a lot of people working together on this. PwC is the sponsor of this project, and John Stevenson is that representative who we have here today, and we appreciate having. And Anne Marie, of course, is the director of the project for TCAL. And then Amy and I are from American Institutes for Research, and we were hired by TCAL to actually develop and deliver the training. So we're really happy to be working with you. And today I'm catching you up on what's been happening up to this point. So here's what we're going to talk about today. Just looking at the new Standards 2.0, or the additions to the original standards that are in 2.0, connecting to employment, a little bit about the employability skills framework, comparing 1.0 and 2.0, and then some of the activities that we have done in the training just to give you a flavor, and then talking about what's going to come next. So I hope you will be able to identify the goals of the whole training project by the end of today, and know where to look for work activities and industry examples in the standards. I don't know if all of you have seen the standards document yet. It's not publicly available because we're still working on accessibility issues, but it is posted in the community of practice on the portal. And so if you are part of the project, you have access to that, or your staff person who came to it has access to that and can get that document for you. You'll be able to recognize employability skills in basic skills lesson, which is a lot of what we're going for here, and pass on information about the regional trainings, which are the next trainings that are coming up. So who came to the training? Instructional leads, the people who were content standards coaches last year. A lot of them are continuing this year with Standards 2.0. This year also included were career navigators and IET basic skills teachers. So anyone who's dealing directly with employability skills in the classroom, plus people who will be coaching those other teachers who need to get familiar with what's available now and what direction we're going. So this is kind of the whole direction that we're going in, is making a connection between education and employment. It's very easy for us to be in our educational silo, and we owe Title I people on the employment side are focused on their goals and activities, and so we don't always have a lot of communication with each other. So this particular project has done a lot of work to get us, those two groups, to talk to each other in a way that's productive for both sides. So I appreciate that, and hopefully you will be appreciating that too as we talk more about it. So Standards 2.0 were developed through the Standards Alignment and Industry Clusters Project, SIAC, as it seems to be called, with the goal of aligning the content standards with the skills needed for entry-level and intermediate-level jobs. So it's about alignment with the standards that we looked at last year and that we continue to use, aligning those with employment goals. And why would we do that? One reason is to help adult learners be prepared for jobs and careers, to help focus instruction and career navigation. So we want to focus on, and I'll talk about this in a minute, in-demand jobs and in-demand industry clusters. So we want to know what's coming, what are the jobs where people are going to be really looking for employees, and we want to have our learners have the opportunity to participate in that labor market. And then for the project, there was a focus on 4 industry clusters as examples, but the same methodology. So as you get used to what's included in those, the examples from those 4 industries, that same methodology will work for any industry. So through that SIAC project, field experts from education and employment worked together, reviewed the content, and selected the 4 industries. And these are the 4 industries: advanced manufacturing, construction and extraction, transportation, distribution and logistics, and healthcare sciences. So these were selected as examples because they are growth industries in Texas and in most regions. But you might have totally other sectors that you want to focus on in your area. It might be biotech, it might be petroleum, it might be computer and information systems. But these were the 4 that were selected because, well, because they're growing, because they're in every region, and because there's an accessible career pathway for adult education students. So there's an entry level that's accessible to people that may have basic skills deficits, but of course we want to always be working on increasing the level of basic skills. Yeah, I think I said that already. So just thinking about building this relationship between education and employment. Actually, first I want to ask you, before you think about that, I recognize some names here in the participant pod. So if you were at the training last week on February 6th, would you just type a Y in the chat pod? I just want to get a sense of how many of you people in the choir am I preaching to? Okay, so 5 or 6 of you were there. Thank you. So I'll rely on you guys to add information and keep me honest. So feel free to chime in the chat pod. Okay, so looking at this question, in terms of building a relationship between your program and employers in your area, what are your most pressing needs right now? This is a very broad question, so just thinking broadly, what's on your mind right now about this issue? Making the connection with employers. Good point. Mr. Martinez? Hiring qualified instructors. Yes, that's always an issue. Recruiting ELL candidates for IET programs. Thank you. Yes. All of the above. Good, thank you. All right, so finding employers who want our services, right. So there's a lot of work to building that relationship with employers and to building our programs in the direction of meeting the needs of employers. So that's kind of what this whole project is focused on. Here are our goals for the participants. We want everyone to be able to identify employability skills and connect them with the standards, identify contextualize academic employability skills and occupational skills in a lesson. And we did a lot of work on this last week and we'll continue to. Contextualizing instruction. We want also for people to support employer engagement and sort of be thinking in that way about like how am I connected to the employers in my region? Who even are the employers in my region that might be hiring? And then, of course, all of these 115 people who are in this project right now are going to be taking this information back and sharing it with their programs in various ways. So we want to focus on that as well. So here's the calendar for overall for the project. We had a webinar for participants in January. We had the introductory training at Taylor last week. We have your first administrator's informational webinar today, and you will have another one on May 2nd. Hope I don't have that date wrong. Anne Marie will correct me if I do. And then we have another webinar for participants at the end of March, and then 6 regional trainings, and I'll give you those dates and locations at the end of this presentation today.
Marion, I'm going to
Yes.
jump in. It's actually, everybody just jot this down. It's May 1st, 2019 at 10:30. But we'll
I'm
fix
so
that.
sorry. I had a
We'll
bad
fix
feeling
that.
when I saw that date. I was like, I don't think that's right. Okay, thank you. It's May 1st. All right, get off that slide. Okay, so now I'm going to take you through some of what we've covered in up to this point, so that you know. So those of you who are there, you know this already, and you can help me. And those of you who are sending staff, this is to keep you up to date with what they're doing and what they need to do, what their assignments are for the future, and where they're going with this. First of all, there's an emphasis on ONET. I'm sure most of you are familiar with this website. It's from the Labor Department, the Federal Labor Department, and it contains information on over 900 jobs. And the SIAC project, aligning the standards with occupations, used ONET extensively to get information. So you'll see that in a minute. You'll see what's included in the Standards 2.0. Comes a lot of it directly from ONET. And all the information there was rated by subject matter experts. So if you haven't looked at it, it's really interesting. You should just go there and look up your job and see how many different job titles your job has, and how many different skills, and what the education requirements are for your job. And then your students will be doing this for themselves frequently as well. So one of the things that the SIAC project determined from ONET was that there are some critical skills that are across all job categories. In other words, you have to be able to listen and look like you're listening pretty much on any job. You need to be adaptable and flexible pretty much on any job, because things are always going to happen that aren't what you're expecting. You have to be cooperative. And then there's the rest of the things on this list you recognize as things that we teach as part of basic skills. So a lot of this is not new. We're doing this. We're just giving it a different focus, maybe a different emphasis of content. Okay, so let's just look at a standard. Let's pull out a standard and look at it. Marion, we have a question. For Webinar 2, who are considered participants? For Webinar 2, the same as for the regional training, the participants are the people that are accepted into the project. So those are the people that came on February 6th. Or I guess there were a few people that weren't able to come, but they are in the project, so those people are still included. But we're not including new people that haven't been in it up to this point. Hope that answers the question. Okay, so looking at a standard. Let's just take research. The standard is from English Language Arts. The standard is planning research. Use a variety of strategies to plan research. And then here's benchmark 1. Formulate research topics and questions from the curriculum, current events, and the workforce, etc. So that sounds like a pretty academic standard, doesn't it? That sounds like preparing for writing research papers in college or in high school or something like that. Here are the things that are added to all the standards. In particular, we're just looking at this one right now in Standards 2.0. So that's the standard that was in Standards 1.0. It's still there. It hasn't been changed. It's exactly the same. But here's some things that are added. The skills from ONET related to this standard and its benchmarks. So each standard has a list of skills. Then there are detailed work activities that are examples of that skill related to particular jobs, and then industry examples. So the industry examples came from ONET, but also I think there were 28 employers that participated in the process of developing the information for Standards 2.0. So they contributed a lot of these examples. So these are examples of things that people are doing right now on particular jobs. So here are the elements for that research standard. And none of these are going to be a surprise or a shock to you, I don't think. So the first two are kind of characteristics, attention to detail and dependability. Those are personal characteristics, but they're not things that you're necessarily born with. They're things that you can learn and strengthen. So we want to be just cognizant of that. The others are basic skills that we teach, and we're familiar with these. So no surprise. Here's an example of a detailed work activity that's related to that standard. Test products or subassemblies for functionality or quality. Okay, what does that have to do with research? So let's look at the industry example. For each detailed work activity, there's an industry example from one of those 4 industries. This one is from advanced manufacturing. The position is quality assurance technician. And here's the example. Verifies the readings and records and records the results for equipment calibrations. Identifies, assists, addresses, and documents quality holds. Reads labels on products to ensure accuracy of shop orders. Okay, so if I'm a teacher and I'm reading this and I'm not sure what all those things mean, I might focus in on one part of it. And for me, I focused in for this one on documents quality holds. What that means to me is looking at the quality of products, and if something's not up to snuff, putting a hold on it and saying, okay, this isn't good enough to go out. Now, that could generate a whole bunch of skills that you might need, because first of all, you're having an effect on the whole process because you're holding up something. You're probably having an effect on whoever did that work and who might feel like it is good enough to go out, so you might be having to deal with some negotiation or some conflict. So we want to put these skills into a framework, and the framework we used in the initial webinar and in the training was the Employability Skills Framework. And this is available online if you Google it. And if you were in the training, you have it, and it's also in the COP. So it divides the skills that we're looking at into 3 areas: effective relationships, workplace skills, and applied knowledge. Applied knowledge is where we're going to find the basic skills, the basic academic skills applied to whatever the work is, and also the cross-cutting skills like problem solving and critical thinking. The workplace skills have to do with all the things you need to know how to do to accomplish your work. And of course, effective relationships has to do with those critical skills of getting along with others and being a team player. So let's look at the effective relationship skills. There's 2 sections of that. There's interpersonal skills and there's personal qualities. And so if you were in the first webinar, you remember this. But just looking at this list, type the number of the skills that you think would be important to teach in terms of documenting quality holds. Just look at this list and type the number of what you think maybe the teacher would be focusing on if he or she was thinking about this example. Mr. Martinez, thank you. 2, 3, 8, 10, 14. Customer needs, exercises leadership, works independently, good. Demonstrates integrity, I agree with that. And 14, I can't even see that. takes responsibility for professional growth, right? Anyone else? Other thoughts? What interpersonal skills or personal qualities are important here? Okay, all right, you guys. I'm going to keep going. Have a little more coffee. Olga, thank you. 6, responsibility and self-discipline, good. Works independently, takes initiative, good. So I'll just show you what I focused on, and thinking about the possibility of conflict, I included 4, which is negotiates to resolve conflicts. I also included 5, I'm not sure why I didn't underline it here, but respects individual differences. And then agreeing with you on the personal qualities, working independently, integrity, and professionalism. So looking at those 2 interpersonal skills, here's just an example of how that might be manifested in a lesson. Maybe you teach the language of negotiation and persuasion. And this could be for ESL, but it's not just for ESL, because a lot of us didn't grow up with the language of negotiation, persuasion, and respect for differences, and how to couch things disagree with people in a professional way that is comfortable for everyone in the discussion. So this also comes under the rubric of increasing rigor of instruction, and maybe even teaching academic language, because how do we respectfully disagree with others and have a discussion about an issue? So you might want to consider blah, 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 or another way to look at this is such and such. So these are things that these are examples of those kind of skills that are needed everywhere, but importantly in the workplace. So given this, I wondered if you can think about these work activities and examples, industry examples, and do you have thoughts about how instructors and career navigators and counselors and others might be using this information at this point? Give you a minute to think about this. How can we use these things, these detailed work activities and examples, industry examples? Those of you who are in the training, I know you have ideas. Others of you, I might be asking you this a little bit early because you haven't really had a chance to have the document in your hands and look at it and think about it. Okay, so here are some examples that came up. And the you here is the teacher, reviewing the student's ITEC plan, create relevant circumstances where negotiations may be used. Good. Determine if a person is ready for training or needs more work. Thanks, Sharon. Yes. Okay, so here are some of my examples. So sometimes you're teaching something that seems kind of abstract to a student, and they're like, why do I have to know algebra? Am I ever going to use this? So so you could just look at that standard and the standards, and you have a few examples of how it could be used in the workplace. Help you talk to students about the work they want to do or are doing now. It gives teachers more information and counselors more information about what's actually needed, what people are actually going to be doing. It provides examples if you need examples for a class activity you're doing. And it provides variety for students with different interests because there's examples from a bunch of different industries. And it gives you a way, once you get comfortable with that, to find examples from many more industries. So it's kind of infinite in that way. And finally, it could lead students to look up examples on their own related to their career interests. So we want teachers to be comfortable using these and looking for more information like this, and then ultimately for students to be comfortable and know how to do that as well. So after the first webinar, we asked people to take a survey and to just think about, of all the employability skills on that list of employability skills, which ones are they teaching or working on teaching or not doing quite yet, or don't think they are ever going to do that because it's not relevant to them. So this survey is based on the Employability Skills Lesson Planning Checklist, and this might be a really useful document for you. It's right here. It looks like this. It's kind of formulated as an observation tool, but you could use it in a variety of ways. You could just share this with your teachers as a list of the kind of things we're looking for. So it's a number of pages long, but basically we just took these skills, reading skills, writing skills, and put them into the survey. So let me go back to my slides. Whoops. Okay, so based on that, now about 70 people have completed that survey. So here are some of the results, and if you were in the training, you saw this already. So there's 6 or 7 sections. One section is on interpersonal skills, which we just looked at. So here you can see, so the blue is I teach this now, and the red is I'm working on this. So some of these, teamwork, help team members and respect differences, are things that in general, you can see the blue is pretty high. A lot of people feel like they're teaching this now. So we do a lot of pair and small group and team activities in our classroom. So teachers are feeling comfortable with that in general, not everybody. But leadership and resolving conflict, not so much. Just almost as many teachers feel like they're working on including that as are including it, and more feel like they're not doing that yet. So those aren't hard things to incorporate. It's just something that you have to think about and you might not have been thinking about to this point. So that's the point of doing the survey and having the checklist is, or what are the things on here that I could be doing, but I just didn't think about that. Wasn't my focus. Here's one on the resource management section. And so many teachers feel like they're doing well on teaching time management because you have a certain amount of time to accomplish a task. So that's one. Not so much on managing money and not relevant to everyone. Managing resources, though, and managing people, those are things if you're doing project-based learning or you're doing a team activity and you have to use certain materials, you are managing the resources. And in any kind of team, somebody's managing the people. You know, there's a lot of people skills and leadership going on there, opportunities for leadership. So those are things we might want to focus on more than we have in the past. Systems thinking is a whole section, and it's one where obviously we're working on it, but we haven't really focused on it, and it just hasn't been a way we've been thinking about what we're teaching. So we may be looking at that more strongly in the future. Understanding your role in the system. So when you have students work in a group and each person is assigned a role, they understand what their role is. But are they involved in assessing the progress of their team? Are they involved in adjusting the course of the project if it isn't going well? Or thinking about the effects of their action, evaluating, well, we did this, now let's evaluate how the outcome was, and maybe we should have chosen something else. So these are all things that we could incorporate more. Just curious if thinking about that lesson planning checklist, is that something that could be useful to you at this point? Dr. Purdue, thank you. Thanks. Okay, so that's just a resource that you have that's just a way to look at the teaching that's going on now and thinking about what's strong and what might need some focus. So we went on from that to looking at and comparing the standards. 1.0, you recognize that green book, and 2.0, that's the cover of the book, of the new book. Just looking at my time to make sure I'm on time. I'm doing pretty good. And then we had an activity where people looked at the growth sectors for their particular region. So here's the 28 regions, and everybody got that particular handout for their region and looked for detailed work activities that were related to jobs that are growing in their regions. So this is the activity. This is what the handout looks like. This is so tiny, don't worry about reading it. It just gives you an idea of it's listing 25 jobs that are growing in that particular region. We went from there to looking at goal setting for students. Of course, you want your students to come in with a goal, and a lot of times they don't have enough information to set an appropriate goal or know what they really want to do. So we have an important role in that. Sometimes we are the person. Sometimes the teacher or the career navigator is the one person who's going to provide that information to give people kind of just a broader view of what's possible than maybe they came in with. So ONET obviously is one of those resources. We gave a bunch of resources that people could use. This is a document that's on links. It's for ESL, but it could be used with other students as well. It's about preparing learners for work and career pathways, and it's like 90 pages long, and it's just stuffed with all kinds of classroom examples and audio examples and all kinds of stuff. So this is a good resource for people to look at. And this one, Amy, I don't know if you want to say something about this. This one, Amy came from LaGuardia College and the CUNY system where they developed this career kit for adult learners. Amy, no? Okay.
Sure, I'm happy to say something about this.
Yeah,
I think,
just say a quick word about this.
I think this is these career kits come in, along with a variety of lessons in each of these cells that you see: healthcare, retail, transportation, manufacturing, and are designed for both ESL and adult ed students. And I think it's a really excellent resource for teachers, and gives all the handouts and the readings, and it's free and available online. So I highly recommend taking a look at it.
Thank you. And then we watched a video about a day in the life of a CNA. And I want to thank Amy for really most all of these activities. And for this one, there's so many of these videos online, a day in the life of pretty much any job you can imagine. So these are good conversation starters, discussion starters, writing prompts, all kinds of things you can do with these videos. So I'm going to ask you another question. Not how can you see your teachers and career navigators using this new information, because we kind of talked about that, but what is the best way to get this information to teachers and career navigators? So we're training 115 people who are going to have this information. What's the best way for them to diffuse this information to everyone in your program? All staff meeting, lunch and learn sessions, thanks. Yeah, what are you going to have these people do when they come back with all this information? Don't just let it sit in their head. There's a lot of replicable activities that you can bring back and do Doesn't have to take 6 hours. You can do something in half an hour or 45 minutes. Individual conversations with students, good. Seminar sessions, thank you. Yeah, just be thinking about that as we go through this. We talked about what's the difference between contextualizing for IET and basic skills. Obviously for IET, you're focused on a specific occupation because you're either co-teaching or coordinating with a CTE teacher that's teaching a specific occupation. Whereas in basic skills, you can be taking examples from many different kinds of contexts, many different jobs, and a lot of it's general workforce preparation and career exploration, which I know you've done a lot of work on. I just want to highlight this activity, yet another Amy activity, where people had 4 posters and they analyzed those posters. So this one on the top is from Irving ISD, and Delia Watley sent this one to us. It's actually an EL Civics lesson on new flooring for the White House. And so they, here, I think I have a better picture of it, not that you're going to be able to read it, but they start out by reading an article about the White House, and then then the task is going to be about installing new flooring in a room in the White House. So then they go into looking at the design of the White House and learning how to measure and figure out area so that they can calculate how much materials are needed. Then using the White House, first they measure in the classroom, and then using the White House blueprint, they figure out how much materials they're going to need for the room that they're using in the White House. And then they develop a script for a conversation between the contractor and the vendor that they're buying the materials from. So this particular lesson has a lot of different things going on in it, which is great. And so there were 4 of these lessons, and here were the questions that people were answering about these lessons. What content standards are addressed? What careers or career clusters are included? What employability skills are being practiced? What technology skills are being developed? And what teaching strategies are used? So these are questions. So this particular lesson, it's a good example because it's really clear. All of those things are pretty clear. But taking any lesson that you're teaching on any given day, you could ask these questions about it. And you might find that there's some career information embedded there that you weren't even thinking about, or there's employability skills being practiced that you weren't thinking about as employability skills. So this is a way to look at what you're doing now, for teachers to look at what they're doing now and see what they already are doing and what maybe needs to be added. Okay, so the first question, what content standards are being addressed? So you can see there's a lot of them, and this is the case for most lessons. Most lessons can't isolate just one content standard. So for these students, Area 3, the content Area 3 is ESL. So there's one for listening, one for speaking, one for reading, and one for writing. And there could be other ones. I just pulled these out because they're doing all 4 of those language skills. And then there's a math skill involved with calculating area. And then there's a teamwork skill, working collaboratively and communicating with others in their group, in their small group with which they did the measuring and the calculating. So I went to the Standards 2.0 and I looked at this, works collaboratively and communicates effectively with others, this standard. And here's the detailed work activity that was associated with this one. Confers with managerial and technical personnel, other departments or contractors to resolve problems or to coordinate activities. So there's a lot of talking to other people and even other departments and contractors, and there's problem solving and there's coordination. So here's the example, advanced manufacturing, materials, this is the position, materials distribution planner. And the example demonstrates the ability to work as part of a tight-knit and competent group of people to achieve common objectives, collaborates with teams from other departments to solve problems. So there's a lot there, Maybe I focus on collaborates with teams from other departments, and I think, okay, I didn't think about that. So working with a team is a set of skills in itself, but then collaborating with another team, what's involved in that? And could I include that in my lesson? Maybe I should have the teams that are measuring combine their information or have to share their information in some way in order to get to the goal. So this industry example gave me an idea about expanding my lesson in a way I maybe wouldn't have thought of before. Here's the standard about measuring length, area, and volume, and here's the work detail for that standard. Well, it's the same one. And here's another example. Construction and extraction, the position is millwright. Insert shims, adjust tension on nuts and bolts, or positions parts using hand tools and measuring instruments to set specified clearances between moving and stationary parts. Okay, maybe here what catches my eye is clearances. So that's a term that I don't usually use in my math instruction, but I can see here it's really important because it's measuring probably a pretty tiny distance between a moving part and a stationary part, and if it's wrong, something's going to break, or somebody's going to get hurt, or something that's supposed to go isn't going to go. So maybe introducing the concept of clearances is something I might talk about that I wouldn't have even used that word before. Like, what's the clearance between the end of the flooring material and the drywall? I'm just making that up, though, so if you are actually in construction, have pity on me. Okay, connection. What careers are connected? What careers might be represented in this lesson? Well, construction, obviously, flooring, estimating. So you have to send an estimator out to estimate how much material you're going to need. Interior design, choosing materials, sales, talking to the vendor. So there's a lot of careers represented here that you could look up on O-Net and get more information about. What employability skills are we seeing? Many of the ones that we just talked about, you can see here. And what technology skills? So it's not totally clear here, but if they're writing their script on the computer, those are some technology skills. If they're doing research on the White House or on other presidents that have lived in the White House, that's a technology skill. If they're actually doing their design with free software like SketchUp or Google Draw, there's another opportunity to incorporate technology into the lesson. So just asking the question will get people thinking about what could be added or included. And then the teaching strategies. This is a terrific lesson because it uses so many different teaching strategies, and these will be familiar to the teachers that are looking at them probably. And then finally, they took lesson materials, realia from the different content areas and worked on creating a lesson of their own. So that's the beginning of the process of taking materials and creating your own contextualized lesson. And the result was a poster that looked something like that and was shared with the group. So that's where we are up to this point. This is the assignment for the people that came out of that training. So the SIAC project, the alignment project, part of their tasks were to present 3 webinars that they did last summer, and those are recorded and they're in the portal. So for those who didn't attend that webinar, this webinar number 2 is about O-Net and how different ways you can use O-Net and different information you can find there. So if people didn't attend that, they can watch that webinar and get an hour of PD credit, I believe. And then their task is to look up another job and find some particular information out about it. Use that information, hopefully, in their teaching or their counseling, and post about it in the portal. And look at other people's work in that area. So that's what people are doing between now and the next webinar on March 29th. So I think we talked about this already. These are the next webinars that are coming up. And these are the regional trainings. The time frame is 8:30 to 3:30. And it says tentative because not every location is locked down at this point. So probably the cities aren't going to change, but we're not putting the locations up here yet because we're still, Anne-Marie and her team are still working on that. But the first one will be in Austin in April, and the rest will be in May. So I hope those dates work for you, and just think about which one your participants will be going to and reserve that date. So these are Fridays and Saturdays. Any questions about any of this? Okay, so I think we talked about this already. Who should come to these trainings is everyone who's enrolled in the project and who attended or was accepted to attend on February 6th. What are we going to be doing there? We're going to be looking at their ONET assignment that they already did and building on that, doing some more work with that, analyzing current lesson plans and considering how to revise and augment, similar to what we just talked about today, and then looking at some of the cross-cutting skills that you need pretty much in any situation like critical thinking and problem solving, and then time for planning about dissemination. Claudia, not happy about Saturdays. Okay, thank you. What other questions or comments do you have at this point? And if none, thank you so much for your time. And we look forward to checking in with you in a couple of months.
Okay, Marion, we do have some questions. We do have some questions that are coming in, and we're gonna. It's kind of okay. All right, so let's go ahead and just see. Yeah, we've got questions coming in here. Okay, all right. So basically, it says. Let's see here. The main question is for webinar 2, who are considered the participants? And Marion, kind of just clarify again, who is the audience for the regional trainings as well as the webinar number 2, or I can clarify however you want to handle.
Okay, so everyone applied to be in this project, and so those who were accepted are the ones that were invited to the February 6th training. So everybody that was accepted into the project, those are the participants. So those are the participants for webinar 2, and those are the participants for the regional trainings. So in other words, it's not opening up to everyone. It's kind of dependent on a base of knowledge that's already been being developed. So we're going to continue working with that group of people. Am I saying that right, Anne-Marie?
Yes, yes. And I'm looking to see if there's other questions. I know that was Claudia's question. I know you had asked that, Claudia. So did that help clarify? Okay, so there is a question from Sharon Moss. Sharon, you can email me about that. We could only send one person to the training on February 6th. Again, if you had nominated 2 people originally, but only one person was able to attend on the 6th, then that person can be considered to go to the regional trainings. But they had to have been nominated originally. So I hope that answers the question. And let's see if I'm missing any questions. I don't think I'm missing any questions here. And as I look to see if other questions are coming in, I know that John Stevenson is on the line from TWC, and I apologize for not introducing John earlier or acknowledging John. And John, I wanted to see if you wanted to say a few words or jump in or just.
No, I don't have anything to add. Thank you all. Thank you, directors, for what do we call it, for signing in to this webinar. And I hope you have a better idea of what we've been up to. We really felt like the training last week was successful. We had lots of engagement, participation, lots of good comments afterwards, and I hope you'll continue to support the participants as we move forward to the regional training. So thanks again.
Thank you so much, John. And I want to thank also our Director of Professional Development, Beth Ponder's also on the line. So Beth, thank you for the support. And are there any other questions? We've got 3 minutes left. If there are, and I do want to thank Marion and Amy for the tremendous amount of work that they are doing for this project. And we look forward to the webinar coming up and to the regional trainings. And I will be sending out information to the participants as the regional trainings are available, and registration is in the PD portal. And as I send out that information, I will include a director so that you are aware of the trainings and when they are locked down for the regionals. Okay, I don't see any other questions coming in here. It is very unusual for us to have 2 minutes left, so all right. Well, we'll go ahead and hold the webinar room open here for another couple minutes in case there are some last-minute questions. And on behalf of Train PD at TCAL, I want to thank everyone for being on the webinar today and spending an hour. And thank you to our presenters, Marion and Amy. And everybody, take care. And we will see you next time. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.